Hey, today I want to share with you something that's going to save you money. It's going to save you time. It's going to save you weight. It's going to save you anxiety. It's going to save you a bunch of things that are all sometimes related to backpacking, and it's completely free. So if you're interested in this, make sure you stay tuned for this video. For those of you that don't know, we're Outdoor Vitals, and this channel is all about getting you outdoors more comfortably and more confidently so that you experience more adventures. That's what we're passionate about, is getting you outdoors. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, make sure you subscribe below and click the video. Give this thing a thumbs up as we go through it. So you're probably wondering what the heck I'm about to talk about. See, recently we started gearing up and planning for some big trips to come later this summer. A 70-mile hike, a 100-mile hike, and some big days. And the first thing that I did was jump over to access this particular item. So what is this item? Well, it's a backpacking checklist. So you see, on my Google Drive, I keep a log of all of my gear that I'm taking on these different big trips. And on the smaller trips, I'm always taking a checklist, the one actually that we send with every single order here at Outdoor Vitals. Now, what are the advantages of a checklist, and why the heck am I using one on every single trip? The number one most important thing that a checklist is gonna do for you is keep your weight in check. It's gonna keep you from getting too high or making any mistakes. When I first was prepping for this next backpack, which is a 70-mile hike, plus or minus, the first thing I did was jump over to this drive. I duplicated the last sheet that I used, and I started editing this document. It gives me a live running total of how much my pack is going to weigh, and then allows me to start tweaking things to be trip specific. Now, this is gonna give me a good idea of where my base weight's gonna be. It should be exactly on, if I'm doing my job, of weighing every piece. But there's a much bigger side that typically happens where you're gonna save a bunch of weight on the trail, and that is right before you're heading out the door, you start throwing gear in. See, I've got a brother, love him to death, he's a stud, but it seems like every time we go out backpacking, we get to our destination and his pack is way heavier than mine. We hike in there and we get sitting on a hillside or something, and he just starts pulling stuff out, and I'm like, dude, why do you have like 3 battery banks? Why do you have this? And his answer is, well, I just threw it in last minute, right? How many of you guys can relate to that? I just threw this in last minute. Now, a checklist, when you use a checklist, be super diligent that if it's not on the checklist, it is not coming with you. How many of you guys can relate to something like this? You get out on the trail, you reach in your pack for your spoon, and suddenly you realize that you forgot to pack your spoon. And I'll tell you what, it's pretty hard to eat a freeze-dried meal with no spoon. Trust me, I've been there, I've tried it, it's not fun. Or I've had this happen, maybe you can relate to this one. You get out on the trail and you realize you forgot your toilet paper. Luckily, I was with some buddies who could share a little bit, but those are the kind of things that a checklist is gonna help you completely avoid. So make sure you're following your checklist exactly, and you're starting with something that is proven. Now, if you go over to our website and you scroll down to the bottom, you're gonna be able to find a checklist template that you can start with, or if you've ordered something from us in the past, you'll be able to get a checklist with that order. That gives you a great template, but you should be making your checklist custom to you and what you prefer on the trail. One of the biggest things that we're passionate about here on this channel is helping educate you so that you don't have any anxieties or fears about getting out backpacking. One of the best ways to limit those fears and those anxieties is through a checklist. You see, if you've got a checklist, you know, if I've packed everything on this checklist, I'm good to go. I don't have to worry about it. I have all of my bases covered, and it brings a lot of safety to the experience. Not to mention, it's gonna help you pack up to go on your trip much faster. You're probably asking right now, how is this gonna save me money? Yes, it's a checklist. Yes, it's gonna help me save weight. It's gonna reduce anxiety, all these things, but how is it gonna save me money? The number one way that I've seen checklists save people money is if they use checklists ahead of time or ahead of purchases. Now, hypothetically, people might be saying, you know, I'm comparing, let's say, Outdoor Vital sleeping bags, and I'm looking at the Lofttech hybrid stuff versus the down stuff, and I end up going with the Lofttech hybrid stuff just because I feel like it's more durable and maybe it's a little bit more affordable. So I get that, and I put it in my pack, and I'm like, holy cow, this thing maybe is a little bit heavier than I was anticipating. I'm trying to cover this kind of mileage, and I really need to be a little bit lighter. I should have got the 30-degree bag, and they don't offer the Lofttech in a 30-degree bag, so I went to 15, so on and so forth. But if you're watching this kind of stuff and you're doing it ahead of time, it's gonna help you realize, hey, this piece of gear is not really gonna work for me, or this piece of gear is gonna work perfectly for me, which will keep you from purchasing unnecessary extras or just making a wrong purchase ahead of time. So make sure you're using your checklist preemptively and getting it right where you want it before you start making all these purchases. So if you can't tell, I'm super jazzed about checklists. It is seriously, it's free. and it is one of the most impactful things that you can do, especially if you start to use it in review after every trip. See, what I do is I take about 5 minutes after a trip to look back through it and mark things that I did not use at all, or things that maybe need to be improved, or just anything that I liked or disliked about the gear that I took. Doing a quick review after your trip will make a massive difference for you to dial in your gear and get the best possible gear out with you on the trail to get you out there more comfortably and more confidently. Hopefully this video was super insightful to you, and hopefully you start downloading your checklist right now over on our website or wherever you can find a bunch of these. There's actually some really great tools out there as well online that you can start using, but start using checklists. Hopefully this is helpful to you. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, and we'll see you on the next video.